Hello, everyone. I am going to be sharing one of my favorite authors with you guys today, and that is Jerry Spinelli. Jerry Spinelli has written multiple stories that are perfect for this age group. He's written a book called The Library Card, which is a story of a library card and how it goes through 4 different students' hands and their experiences with it. Ringer, which I know used to be a story that many of you read in 5th grade about a kid who has this thing that he has to do when he turns 10. And he doesn't want to have to do it. His classmates are all doing it. His dad used to do it, but he's feeling that pressure of not wanting to, and how he deals with that particular experience. The Warden's Daughter is another novel that Jerry Spinelli wrote, one of his more recent novels about a girl who is growing up without a mother, and her father is a prison warden. So she lives in the prison, and some of the ladies in the prison become sort of her mother figures. And of course, Maniac McGee is one of my favorites. If you've been in one of my classes, you'll know that we usually read this at some point during the year. It is a classic and deals with racism and what it's like to be in communities that are segregated, but not necessarily set during the time of segregation during the Civil Rights Movement. But the story I'm going to share with you today is the introduction and the first chapter of Stargirl. Stargirl is one of Jerry Spinelli's next movies that is being produced. I don't know when it's supposed to be released, but the last I talked to him, he said that he was having a lot of input into the movie, as opposed to the Maniac McGee movie, which is not nearly as good as the book. So I'm going to read to you just the introduction and the first chapter of Stargirl. Porcupine Necktie. When I was little, my Uncle Pete had a necktie with a porcupine painted on it. I thought that necktie was just about the neatest thing in the world. Uncle Pete would stand patiently before me while I ran my fingers over the silky surface, half expecting to be stuck by one of the quills. Once, he let me wear it. I kept looking for one of my own, but I could never find one. I was 12 when we moved from Pennsylvania to Arizona. When Uncle Pete came to say goodbye, he was wearing the tie. I thought he did so to give me one last look at it, and I was grateful. But then, with a dramatic flourish, he whipped off the tie and draped it around my neck. "It's yours," he said, "going away present." I loved that porcupine tie so much that I decided to start a collection. 2 years after we settled in Arizona, the number of ties in my collection was still 1. Where do you find a porcupine necktie in Micah, Arizona, or anywhere else for that matter? On my 14th birthday, I read about myself in the local newspaper. The family section ran a regular feature about kids on their birthdays, and my mother had called in some info. The last sentence read, "As a hobby, Leo Botlock collects porcupine neckties." Leo Borlock, sorry, I mispronounced his name. Several days later, coming home from school, I found a plastic bag on our front step. Inside was a gift-wrapped package tied with yellow ribbon. The tag said, "Happy birthday." I opened the package. It was a porcupine necktie. 2 porcupines were tossing darts with their quills, while a third was picking its teeth. I inspected the box, the tag, the paper. Nowhere could I find the giver's name. I asked my parents. I asked my friends. I called my Uncle Pete. Everyone denied knowing anything about it. At the time, I simply considered the episode a mystery. It did not occur to me that I was being watched. We were all being watched. Chapter 1. Did you see her? That was the first thing Kevin said to me on the first day of school, 11th grade. We were waiting for the bell to ring. "See who?" I said. "Ha!" He craned his neck, scanning the mob. He had witnessed something remarkable. It showed on his face. He grinned, still scanning. "You'll know." There were hundreds of us milling about, calling names, pointing to summer tanned faces we hadn't seen since June. Our interest in each other was never keener than during the 15 minutes before the first bell of the first day. I punched his arm. "Who?" The bell rang. We poured inside. I heard it again in homeroom, a whispered voice behind me as we said the Pledge of Allegiance. "You see her?" I heard it in the hallways. I heard it in English and geometry. "Did you see her?" Who could it be? A new student? A spectacular blonde from California? Or from back east, where many of us came from? Or one of those summer makeovers? Someone who leaves in June looking like a little girl and returns in September as a full-bodied woman, a 10-week miracle? And then in earth science, I heard a name. Stargirl. I turned to the senior slouching behind me. "Stargirl?" I said. "What kind of a name is that?" "That's it. Stargirl Caraway. She said in homeroom." "Stargirl?" "Yep." And then I saw her at lunch. She wore an off-white dress so long it covered her shoes. It had ruffles around the neck and cuffs and looked like it could have been her great-grandmother's wedding gown. Her hair was the color of sand. It fell to her shoulders. Something was strapped across her back, but it wasn't a book bag. At first I thought it was a miniature guitar. I found out later it was a ukulele. She did not carry a lunch tray. She did carry a large canvas bag with a life-size sunflower painted on it. The lunchroom was dead silent as she walked by. She stopped at an empty table, laid down her bag, slung the instrument strap over her chair, and sat down. She pulled a sandwich from the bag and started to eat. Half the lunchroom kept staring, half started buzzing. Kevin was grinning. "What'd I tell you?" I nodded. "She's in 10th grade, he said. "I hear she's been homeschooled till now." "Maybe that explains it," I said. Her back was to us, so I couldn't see her face. No one sat with her, but at the tables next to hers, kids were cramming two to a seat. She didn't seem to notice. She seemed marooned in a sea of staring, buzzing faces. Kevin was grinning again. "You thinking what I'm thinking?" he said. I grinned back. I nodded. Hot Seat. Hot Seat was our in-school TV show. We had started it the year before. I was the producer-director. Kevin was on-camera host. Each month, he interviewed a student. So far, most of them had been honor student types, athletes, model citizens. Noteworthy in the usual ways, but not especially interesting. Suddenly, Kevin's eyes boggled. The girl was picking up her ukulele, and now she was strumming it. And now she was singing. Strumming away, bobbing her head and shoulders, singing, I'm looking over a four-leaf clover that I overlooked before. Stone silence all around. Then came the sound of a single person clapping. I looked. It was the lunch line cashier. And now the girl was standing, slinging her bag over one shoulder and marching among the tables, strumming and singing and strutting and twirling. Head swung, eyes followed her, mouths hung open. Disbelief. When she came by our table, I got my first good look at her face. She wasn't gorgeous, wasn't ugly. A sprinkle of freckles crossed the bridge of her nose. Mostly she looked like 100 other girls in school, except for two things. She wore no makeup, and her eyes were the biggest I had ever seen, like deer's eyes caught in headlights. She twirled as she went past, her flaring skirt brushing my pant leg, and then she marched out of the lunchroom. From among the tables came 3 slow claps. Someone whistled. Someone yelped. Kevin and I gawked at each other. Kevin held up his hands and framed a marquee in the air. Hot Seat, coming attraction, Stargirl. I slapped the table. Yes. We slammed hands. And that is all I'm going to read you. If you are curious about what happens when they get Stargirl on the hot seat, then make sure you pick up a copy of Jerry Spinelli's Stargirl, read it, and then when the movie comes out, you'll be able to tell which was better, the book or the movie.